We're going to discuss pro-social media effects today. And just to define it, pro-social behaviors are voluntary acts that are for the benefit of others. Now, in the last lecture, we talked about the effects of violent content. And so today, I'd like to look at some positive pro-social effects of media. Let's focus on helping behaviors. Research shows that playing pro-social video games actually increases pro-social behavior over time. And interestingly, this occurs among very different ages and across very different populations around the world. Additionally, those who played a pro-social video game were more likely to intervene in a confrontation between a man and his girlfriend. So in the last lecture, we saw how exposure to violent content was related to people being less likely to help. Here we see that exposure to pro-social content actually increases people's ability or interest in helping others that are involved in an altercation. Now, these were just actors, of course, but it shows that people were more willing to help after playing pro-social games. Now, I've done a lot of work on individuals' morality, so let's talk about the effects of television exposure on individuals' morality, or one's sense of what is right and wrong. Now, children's television used to have a lot of cartoon violence, especially when I was growing up in the 1990s. Over the last 15 years, though, many more pro-social acts have been incorporated into children's television narratives. But some research has demonstrated that children don't understand these moral lessons that they're supposed to learn. That is, after exposure, they can't tell the researcher the lessons that were in the show or what they were supposed to learn by watching the show. But isn't it possible that some children might be influenced by this exposure even if they can't tell a researcher that they were? In recent work that I did, we found that after a child watched an episode of Arthur that taught about fairness, their ability to consider other people's perspectives increased. And this increased ability in perspective taking influenced the ways that they made moral judgments and engaged in moral reasoning. Those who watched with a parent made even greater gains in perspective taking than children who watched alone, demonstrating that in this case, the social context in which children watched could influence how they were affected by exposure to Arthur. Young children also struggle to include people who look different than them. There is work that suggests that watching pro-social television shows intending to teach about tolerance and inclusion of others don't have an actual effect on children's social inclusion behaviors. However, in many cases, children watch these shows in a group, right? They don't watch alone. They watch with maybe siblings or some of their peers. In another recent study, we found that if a child watched a show intending to teach inclusion with their best friend, a member of their social group, they were actually more exclusive toward other people. Or another way of saying that, they were less inclusive of other people than children who watched the exact same television narrative by themselves. We think that this is because watching with one's best friend makes one's own social group more salient in their minds, and therefore one might be more exclusive in order to maintain the perceived integrity of one's own social group. Once again, we see how the social context in which we consume media can influence media effects. In this case, if we watch alone, it has no effect whatsoever on social inclusion behaviors, but if we watch with our best friends, members of our own group, there's actually a negative effect on social inclusion. So overall, while media can have negative effects, we also see that it can positively influence helping behaviors and morality, which are important pro-social behaviors. We also saw in this lecture that the social context in which one consumes media can influence media effects as well. This is particularly so among children who watch with a parent or a friend. But similar work shows that this can occur among adolescents and even college-age students. Thus, there are a number of media, certain video games and certain television content, that have been shown to influence children, adolescents, and young adults in a pro-social way.